Hey, Joe.
Hey Rizzo, love, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Great. Excited for today.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you could make it today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm
Were you in LA?
I'm in LA. Yes. Yes. So yeah.
And are you loving it there or is it working for you?
It's good. I may actually point towards New York after this. So kind of
Oh, really?
retracing your footsteps almost. Like in the
Yeah.
sense of going to New York. So yeah. How's
But
everything
did you
going?
ever live in New York before?
I did
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
And
thought.
yes. And that's where I first saw you at Joe's Pub, where you did your Violet album, actually, like one by one. It was amazing.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
there's a chance. Oh, I know my mom's joining, but
Oh,
hey,
great.
mom. But it might just be the three of us. But let me ask you really quickly. Have you heard from Jeff at all lately?
Yeah, I love the question. Yeah, I feel we're close friends still, and
Oh, good.
actually that's where I met him when I was living in New York and he was living in New York as well. Yeah, and he's doing fine. He's also in LA. I was just in WeHo last night, so I was gonna say hi, but didn't get a chance to.
Yeah,
But, I don't know. We just texted yesterday anyway, so we text often. He's doing just fine, and
good.
like yeah, and I know, and he just feels her like love and care. And just today, I was thinking about that wonderful birthday message you gave from him of the.
Oh,
I'm thinking of
yeah.
the Streisand song. Like I don't know if it's
Yeah,
originally her like "Smile," "Why
yeah,
Your Heart
yeah,
Is
yeah.
Breaking." It was just so beautiful. So he loves you. He feels your love,
Oh,
and he
good.
loves that. But yeah.
And just an intimate question, but is he still using ketamine a lot, or
No, no
is it?
problem. I know this is being recorded, so obviously this is being edited out.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But no, no, actually, he's been like fully sober for like going on 2 years now, which
Oh, that's
is
so
great.
great.
Yeah.
Oh, good, good,
So,
good.
and even everything, even yeah, so that's great. I think there's still uh you'll obviously edit the first part out, right?
Yeah, no, no, no. I totally will. Like,
There's still some like I
I
think
can
with the
turn off the
no,
recording.
no, that's fine. A couple year hang after that. So
Oh, gotcha. Oh, it turned
yeah.
back on. Okay, cool. Awesome. Oh, yay. Hey,
Hey.
we've got another person joined us. And I think I'm just gonna go into it and people might trickle in as we head. But
Rizzo, your video is off. I just want to let you know. I'll turn mine off so, just in case that.
oh, thank you, thank you, thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, you can turn it on or off. I don't mind. I'm just gonna start with talking about beginnings. Because they're fucking hard. I am I'm the kind of artist that begins a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, and my downfall would be that I don't complete them. But I think that the beginnings that I make are often in this big idea way, and that I have a little lie that I tell to myself that that because I'm thinking it over, I'm thinking it through, that that is actually part of the work um, of actually doing it, um, and um, and so I've been doing a little research about why the reasons we don't start the actual work, why we make it so, why is it so damn hard, and so uh, um so actually, before we fully get started, I wanted to do a tiny bit of centering, just to get into a place where we can move a little bit past our mental harried, lots of things going on space, and into a deeper place. And so, if you could just join me in a moment where you find a centered place where you're seated and closing your eyes. And as we, for just one moment, connect to the breath, releasing out all of the anxiety about what it is to be here, what it is to join here, what's expected of you, etc. And just connecting to the most simple part of our existence, which is the breath. Feeling your what you're seated on, the chair, the feeling your invisible line from the top of your skull into the heavens, so that polarity between the gravity of what pulls you down and the ether which pulls you up, and then we are that channel between the two things of grounded and ascending. And I feel like life is a constant struggle between either being too grounded or too ascended. So sometimes the ascended can show up in anxiety and staying in our head and staying in a lot of fear-based circles of what things could mean. And then the grounded could feel sluggish or or non-moving, phlegmy, stagnant. And so really feeling the polarity of the pull, the ascension and the ground. And then just letting that go. And then the yogis have long since talked about this center line, which they call the Nodi Shodhana, but it's really the middle line of the body. So like kind of around, just in front of the spine. I want you to imagine it glowing, a light glow. And that glow can have a golden hue, it can have a magenta hue, it can have a silver hue, whatever kind of makes you feel most connected to your interior. But with each breath, the light that central channel, that snake of the center line up and down your spine, it expands outwards with the inhale. And then with the exhale, it retreats back into the line, but then it glows brighter. So it's like a charge. Inhale, it expands out. Exhale, charging up. And now just stay with the charge inside. And then with the inhale, that light grows brighter, more vibrant. It stays inside. And the exhale, it expands all around you. And once again, with the inhale, growing stronger with that center line. And the exhale, you can let the light expand around. And just stay with that for just one moment. The inhale being the glowing, and the exhale being the expanding. A couple more breaths. Feeling that vibrancy of that inner line when you inhale, and the exhale, all of the light expanding outwards. Okay, now we can let that go. And then I feel like we're in a place to just be and and listen, perhaps in a more grounded way. So Goethe, he was incredibly prolific. Um, he it, I'm sure you've seen some of his quotes, maybe on a kitten poster or something with a mountain. But one that really, really stays with me is uh, a quote actually from Faust, which is, "Whatever you can do or dream, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it." I've always loved this quote because I also identify with someone as bold, but I'm not always in a place to begin my dreams. And because, like I said earlier, beginnings are hard. Like, I want to land in a place where it's almost like I have this fantasy that I can just stay in this liminal space of dreaming up an idea, and then I don't have to actually do the steps to make it come into fruition. And so I wanted to start actually by asking some questions of you guys, and I'm gonna turn this on speaker because I've got some people in the room with me. Okay. No. So, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself, can you guys still hear me? Yeah,
Yep.
for just a second.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, cool. And for I just wanted to kind of popcorn around the room, like, what are the reasons why we don't start creative projects that have been long-standing dreams? And yes, someone's in the room with me. A student is in the room. Yeah. What is the reason why?
Well, one of the reasons to me is that I feel I'm just too old.
Too old. Okay. I'm
Now.
gonna write that down. Yeah. Too old. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna start writing these down, and we're not gonna explain any of them away. We're just like going to get them out there.
So you just start feeling like things are not, you're not planning forward, you're just kind of remembering past. And
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
in
Too
terms
old.
of dreams.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Deborah. Deborah. Joe, what are some reasons why you don't start things?
So many are coming to mind, Rizzo. So I guess I feel like inertia might be one reason. Just I don't know, the inertia of even staying in bed or staying at work. You mentioned creative. Also, I feel like creativity isn't valued in our culture. So that's, if you're talking about a creative thing, it's just not part of what I think our society values. Yeah, those are two that come to mind, just kind of, yeah.
Just kind of being in the habit of not doing it. But is that what you mean by inertia?
That's right. Like, you have to create a new habit to actually do something or do something new. To do something new, you have to do something new.
Awesome. Tanya, did you have any, how do you answer that?
Yes, I would say, and hello, nice to see you both. I would say it's sort of the time that it takes to complete a task. Like, I'm really not good at, I have this obsession with finishing. And if I can't finish it within, the outset, it's intimidating to me. Like, I could never build a bridge. I'd be like, I can't get that done in a day.
Right.
Sorry. So it's really that facing the mountain, the long journey for me is very intimidating. And I know, creativity takes time. Most of it does. And I think I'm afraid that I don't have, if I can't get it done quickly, why start?
Yeah, totally. Those are all incredibly valuable kind of fears.
Tanya reminded me of one, Rizzo.
Yeah.
Tanya, maybe this is also like perfectionism.
That's a really good.
I saw an Instagram video of Jonathan Van Ness yesterday doing trying gymnastics, and it was so wonderful because he was so bad. Because you're watching usually Simone Biles on Instagram, and you're not going to be that. So it's like the culture. It's almost like, how they like Photoshop everything. That's what we see. And then we're writing a poem, and you know what? It's going to suck. And that's hard to accept.
Yeah, no, that's such a good one.
Right there with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And just on that note, I speak about this sometimes when I speak at colleges or at higher learning things, is that I go and intentionally attempt to see work that is not good, mainly because it boosts my self-confidence to like, and it's really how I started Lady Rizzo was I started seeing, I was an actress, and then I started seeing bad burlesque in town because it was kind of the neo burlesque movement, and and just this surge of energy of like, I can't do this perfectly, but I know I can do it better than that. And I actually just went to see Hedwig and the Angry Inch here in Portland, and I've had some thoughts about getting back into theater and maybe directing theater, and it was a bad performance, and it really gave me the kind of courage to say, I have skills to direct. I know I can do that, and I know choices that were smarter. But yeah, that example of Jonathan Van Ness doing the gymnastics. I want to acknowledge the time thing. I've got a whole section about time, so I'm going to save that for later. But for me, or to speak aloud, earlier, what I said about having gotten it all figured out yet, like I have this, and I do think I go back and forth about, should I share dreams that I have not started yet? Because there's differing mentality about it. One, they say that if you say things like, I'm writing a book, but you're not actually writing it, that you get the dopamine and like self-congratulative hormones from the people who are like, that's great, and then you actually don't do it. So there's one like way of thinking, and then there's another one that says if you say it out loud, and then you'll be too embarrassed to never do it, and so it's a way of accountability. And I still am not quite sure which one is best. I think that probably it's best to not say you're writing a book until you've at least written an outline or a couple of chapters. But in response to you, Tanya, I have been thinking about this metaphor of building a house. Like, a creative venture is the metaphor of building a house. Like, no one would just start with building unless you were doing just a very simple log cabin, I guess. But you start with a blueprint, right? And then with the blueprint, even before the blueprint, there's a list of like dreams, what we want it to look like, what our fantasies about the house could look like, what are the necessaries that we'd want to build this house. And many of the things on that list are probably not going to be on it. And so this commitment to exploring ideas that might be given up. And I totally agree with you with what you said, Tanya, about like it being so intimidating to not start things that could be finished in a day. I can't quite imagine writing a novel in a day or building a house in a day. And so the idea is always returning to these bite-sized, accessible breakdowns of what you can do. You can't write a book in a day, but could you write a possible outline? Could you write a list of things that list of characters? Could you write one chapter or even a section of a chapter. I go back to Martha Beck. So I know we've talked a little bit about Martha Beck, Tanya, in our last session, but I love that she calls her things turtle steps, not even baby steps or tiny steps. It's literally
Yeah, remember this, yeah.
a turtle waddle. 1% turn. So like if I'm writing and to be okay with that. And I think that is connected. The fear of even going towards the turtle steps is connected to perfectionism that Joe brought up, of feeling like we are inundated with people's final projects all the time. We're viewing these books that are on the shelves, these poems that are completed, these series that have been made with so many people over so many years. Yeah, the fear of the blank page is a real thing. So like we start by putting our name on it, and then it's not blank in it, and then and knowing that my shows that I've written, most often the first line that I have started in the draft is never the first line that ends up in the show. Like the thing you begin with is not the thing you end with. And that this place of thinking it all through, which is where, again, that's where my resistance shows up. It is often a delay tactic. I want to move on now that we've just spoken a little bit to a little exercise. So if you would get out your paper and pen, and we're going to just move into the creative brain space, just have a little fun. And there are no right answers here. Again, this is not about right or rules. We're just getting into a part of the brain that is not going to hamper us down by realistic thinking. And so this game is called Backronym. And so I'm going to give you 4 letters, and I just want you to write the acronym that these 4 letters are for. It's not a real one. So the backronym is NWFQ. So tell me what this stands for. We'll write for a little bit and then we can. Am I making sense?
Was that F as in Frank?
N as in Nancy, W as in Walter, F as in Frank, and Q as in quail. Maybe write 4 of them. That'll be fun. Or 3. Okay. Have we written 4 or 3?
I only 2.
Okay. Okay, let's just read some of them out, your favorite ones. Joe, you want to go?
Sure, happy to. I have, I think, 4.
Okay.
Not with fucking people or not without fucking people. Nothing white fits past Labor Day. I just added an L. Narwhal fucked politics, which was like a Narwhal was like a program for, I don't know. I don't actually know what it is. And nostalgia while feeling pensive.
Oh,
Oh,
I love those. I like that you heard that it was a P instead of a Q.
I
But-
thought it
Oh,
was,
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's right.
I was just like frantic.
0.
I don't know, but
This is the problem. This is the perfectionism now.
that's
I'm
good.
gonna go in the corner.
What was the narwhal one?
I feel like there was some, maybe somebody else on the call knows better than I do. There was some like program that like a conservative political party used to like lead, like tip like mass groups of people in their thinking on social media. And this
Oh.
was like during one of the Barack elections, I believe.
Oh, gotcha. Oh my God, I love that.
The name of their software program.
I love that. Tanya, it was yours.
So my first two were never wait for quiet.
Oh, I have that one too.
Hey. And then the next one I wrote was now will feel quenched.
Ooh. Awesome. I like your first two were the same.
Seriously?
Really good.
The third one I was falling apart. I wrote next we find. I wanted to use the word quell, so I just wrote quelling, but I don't even know if quelling is
Fun quelling.
quelling. We will quell our minds. That's
Love it.
freaked out about the P, and I was like, oh no, I have to stop.
Crossed it all out. All right. Deborah, you want to go with yours?
I just have one that I like. No one writes for quantity.
Ooh. That actually into the subject I have. Okay, I have 4. No work for Quentin. I don't know who Quentin is, but
Quintinacti.
also never wait for quiet. Nobody wants fucking Q-tips. And national weirdos, fairy queers. It's like a headline.
I like that.
All right. So awesome. It's fun to do a little thing that gets you out of your so beginning is easier when we don't confuse the process of making the thing with the thing, right? So all throughout theater school, we were always talking, all the teachers were always talking about it's process, not product. It's process, not product. And then of course you still got kind of graded on your final product. So it's this weird dichotomy, but I am beginning to understand in a greater kind of Zen way that all of my life is spent in this idea of getting through to the end of something, and in a macro vision lens. Even I'm trying to, like, I hate cooking, or I don't hate it. I don't love it as much as other people. And I have never understood why people are like, oh, I can't wait to get home and cook. And, you know, through the aid of one of my helpers, edible marijuana, the other day, I had an epiphany of that each step in cooking, I am like hurrying through to get to the next step, and that there was never a delight in like crushing the garlic and the feeling of crushing the garlic and being in that moment with the garlic before I moved on. It's always like this anxious energy of like, okay, I have to get to the next step. I have to get to the next step. And I think that this is an attitude that I apply to my whole life of like, get through this so we can get to the next step. And in a larger like macro lens, we could see that as a life spent each moment getting through to get to the next step, which in a creative space, I suppose is the finality, the ending of it. But as someone who's lived through the finality and ending of a performance or a run, there's a great sadness that comes when then you're done and then you're like, oh, this free time that I wanted. And then there's this like empty place in your heart. And you often get depressed because you're going into the space that isn't filled by what is the next. And so like how to actually fall in love with, once we get past the creaky, rusty parts of the beginning into the actual work and like enjoying the work of creativity. So creation is an instant, it has false starts, we throw things away. And that is the joy. And as I mentioned in my kind of teaser for this, the science about creativity is becoming very well documented. That is a true antidote to not only depression and anxiety, but creativity without the end result of like, I'm going to write the next, you know, concerto for violin, without the, or the next, you know, Game of Thrones. The creativity for itself is in fact showing upon the brain to have as much restorative energy as meditation, as yogic daily practice. And that it's remembering that it's not something that we're learning, but rather it's unlearning. There was a NASA test of creative thinking. It's and this is a well documented study where they took this test that was given to the most creative thinkers, scientists at NASA, and they gave a version of the test to 5-year-olds about creative problem solvers. The 5-year-olds in the study passed. 89% of the 5-year-olds were working in a creative way that was alongside the level of these high-level engineers and thinkers when it came to looking at problems creatively. And once we got to 10 to 13-year-olds, it dropped to 18%. And once we got to 32-year-olds, it goes to 2. And so it really isn't 2% of people. Yeah, it's not that it's something that there's this deep, oh, we have to get this big set of skills to look at things creatively. It's really, how do we let go of some of the rules, some of the perfectionists, some of the negative thoughts, some of the imposter syndrome, some of the, like what we said, inertia earlier, and prioritizing time to get to this place where we can be in a space where we're playing. My whole life has really been around play. And then it's interesting how sometimes then these rules that I've set for myself very clearly of making work and how I like to make work then can become these rigid, unenjoyable things. And that I often have to just remind myself, I'm just stepping into play again. And that my job as an artist, and especially an artist on stage, is to allow audiences to witness an adult playing. Yes, I have skills that I've worked very hard at, that I've, some could say, worked the 10,000 hours towards mastery. I mean, who knows how much I've lost in these 2 years that I haven't been doing it so much, but I've worked with a facility with my voice to be able to trust that I can go places. But really, I think why I have any sort of a career, a cult career of people that want to see me around the world, is because I have a commitment to playing on stage. And that is what draws people in. That's what ignites their passion, because they see that play within their own self, within their own vision, and they see the reality. Last performance I did an outdoor festival over last summer, and this person pulled me aside and they said, I really want to thank you because I want to, and this sounds so cliche, but I want to thank you for so boldly being yourself on stage. And I was like, okay, well, am I boldly being myself? I'm being a version of myself. I mean, myself has a lot more kind of grouchy grumbles. But I think what the practice of being on stage since I was a child for so long has enabled me is that I feel comfortable in that realm enough to make mistakes, embrace them, live in the moment enough to be free to think and not be paralyzed. Um, so let's talk about time. First, well, I do want to say there's this book by this guy, David Duchemin, Duchemin. It's called Start Ugly. And I think it's a great book. I'm just going to say out a couple books that if you wanted to have something that you're reading that helps you connect with some of these ideas. And another one is Twyla Thorpe, the dancer. She wrote a great book called The Creative Habit. So in Start Ugly, he talks a lot about the embracing the ugly starts without judging it, and uses the metaphor of Hans Christian Andersen's The Ugly Duckling. And you guys remember that story, right? Yeah, everybody remembers that story.
Rizzo,
Yeah.
you know who would benefit from this, who would love this, is our mutual friend. And I texted him, could he join to listen to you as well? Okay, great.
Yeah.
We would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm Tanya brought on a friend, and then they patrons. So
Yeah, so he sends his best, by the way. He can't join today, but he says hello.
okay, awesome. Yeah, fully. I do have to check the time because I don't want to go over. I want to respect you guys. Okay, so Dolly has a quote. This is, I think, a good Dolly quote. Those who do not want to imitate anything produce nothing. And so I think another thing that puts blocks is this desire for originality. And I'm a big fan of that, precept of stealing everything. Because I really don't think, unless you're like a full-blown plagiarist, which, listen, I want to be honest, when I was, because my mom's in the room, I have to be honest, when I was in middle school, I totally plagiarized a monologue out of a book, and I submitted it for a contest, and I won. Yeah, and then how did you find out?
I read it in monologue.
Oh yeah, then she found the book and then was like, you remember that monologue you submitted for that contest? I found it in this book. And so I don't think we came clean, but there was a
few years.
there was a few, it wasn't enough time to come clean to the contest. But I think we all know the difference between plagiarizing is like, I picked it up word for word. I might have added a couple of descriptive elements, but I think this desire for originality takes away such a ripe creative practice of taking disparate inspirations and just sandwiching them together into something that is not going to be anyone else's, because it's going to be through the distinct lens of who you are. So the Hans Christian Andersen story of The Ugly Duckling, starting, and basically I think the moral of that story is what, like, animals are assholes, but he's born into the duckling family, and they all, make him feel completely disgusting. And then he goes into another community and they're like shot. But then finally he's taken by the swans and then he sees it. I don't think that it's necessarily a story about fully just judging a book by its cover or thinking something in the beginning. I think it's actually could be a story about creativity, is that this resistance to start is our need to completely push away the ugly, and that in the beginning, which, as I said before, beginnings are fucking hard. We must embrace the ugly, embrace the clumsiness, and without judging, and move past, so that we can keep on being in that place of, carrying the water. And as in the Zen koans, like, the work is carrying the water and stacking the logs. Like, in the work, we see past, and then finally we can see the swan. There was a pottery class. This is I found in this book called Art and Fear. A pottery class was split in two, and she divided the class and said, this group, you're going to be judged, your grade is going to be judged on one piece that you're going to work on through the whole semester. And then this part of the group, you're going to be judged on how many pieces you make, right? And in the end of the semester, the people that were challenged to make the most made by and far better pieces. Because if we are focused on this one, piece of art that's going to last our whole life, we fucking will never finish it. We will never, ever. I mean, I just had to finish working on that music video, Lilac One, that I released to you patrons. And because I had worked on it for the last year, and like picking it apart, there is a point at which it will never end, right? I would like to now just shift back into an exercise, because how we're going to go back and forth is just me talking head and then exercise. And so I'd like for you to get out your pen and paper again, and I want you to write an 8-word story or movie plot. This could be a plot that is a plot already, but I want you to do it in 8 words. We're just, again, doing this lightly, no judgment. This is kind of inspired by Hemingway's famous 6-word story, where he was where it was like a bet, which I'm not even sure if it's a true story. So an 8-word story, or you could tell a movie plot in 8 words. Are you ready? Get set, go. Don't think too hard. 1 more minute. Okay. Okay, are we almost ready to share? Tanya, how about you? You want to go first?
You said it could already exist?
It could already exist.
Okay. Because this is totally plagiarized. Speaking of plagiarism, I wrote, I found out my sister is my mother.
Ooh.
Because I just read a book about the making of Chinatown.
Oh.
So it's on my mind.
That's good.
Is that not fair? Should I try again?
No, I did the exact same thing. Joe, you want to do yours?
Sure. Last night, I scrolled myself to sleep again.
That's more than 8 words, isn't it?
Is it? Last night, I scrolled myself to sleep again. I don't know. I
not.
think.
That's close.
Oh, take off the again then. I thought it was 7. That's why I added the again. I can't understand letters or really numbers. So strong start.
Beautiful.
Okay. Great.
Mr. Whitty, would you give hello, welcome. So glad you're here.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
Hang on, let's see. I just wrote what came into my head. Does it have to be in first person?
No.
Oh, okay. A concubine finds herself in the corridors of power.
Oh,
that's good.
whoa. Wow. See, their curiosity about that's good. A concubine.
Yeah, you got it.
finds
You
herself.
did,
Yes.
yes.
All right, Deborah.
Riley changed his fate when he killed her.
Ooh, this is good. I like the ones that make me want to know. Well, I did what Tanya did. The women ran from police and over cliff. Right. Tell me what that one is.
Is it
okay.
over a cliff or over cliff?
Well,
Thelma E. Louise.
5, 6, 7, 8. I had to do over cliff. It could be. It's man.
Poor Cliff.
All for cliff. Okay, great. So let's talk about time, because time was one of the things that was brought up of why we do not begin. What we're talking about beginnings and why they're so fucking hard, and how we can get to the place of Goethe where whatever we can do or dream, beginning it. So time. No one has time, right? No one has enough time. And like I said before, there's these moments where I'm seeing these small aspects of my creative world kind of as a larger metaphor for my life. In that lately I've been feeling like every day I have this feel like it's a hustle, and I'm like changing from task to task, and it's always this hustle, and I'm caught in the feeling that I never get enough done. And there's a certain piece that lately that has come over me, which is that I will never, ever get my to-do list done. It will never be done. And if it is done, that means I'm dead. And that's like a beautiful thing too. I can't wait to be dead. But I can't wait to, that I will never, ever finish this list. And that time is a resource. They say time is money, but I think it's more valuable than money. You could ask to borrow money, but it's really hard to borrow time. It just keeps on going. You can't make time, but you can reclaim it. And there was this beautiful, I'm sure you may have heard this before, but I'm going to say it again. So this is in the art of saying no to other things. Imagine you have a jar, and you've got this big, and this jar, medium-sized jar, and then you've got 3 bowls, and the bowls are filled with sand, gravel, and larger rocks. So, and you've got to put everything that's in this bowl in this jar, and you say there's no way that all this can fit. And so you try it, and you put the sand in first, then you put the gravel, and then definitely the larger rocks won't fit in. However, there is a way that they can all fit, and that is you put the larger rocks in first, then you put the gravel, and then you put the sand, and everything finds the space, right? We've heard this before. So this is a metaphor for time. The larger rocks are the most important things. They're the things that are connected to your larger goals and your values, the things that on your deathbed, you're going to be like, I am miffed that I did not actually finish that book. I really doubt that I'll be saying I am angry that I did not do enough Insta stories, or I'm angry that I did not clear my inbox. But so those are the larger rocks. And then you've got the gravel, and those are the medium things. And I think that personally, my experience with time is that I get stuck on the gravel. So there are these like tiny to do things that feel pressing, like paying that bill and making that. And everything seems to take a little longer than it should. And then the sand is probably the social media, or the watching TV, or spending way too much time on email. That feels like really important, and it should be things that you're doing, but really probably you could have sent that email in 2 sentences as opposed to 6. So we must guard our time for the large rocks. And this is really hard. You have to practice saying no. I am very bad at this. I'm a social animal. I love to be around people. I love social engagements. But there is a recommendation that from this gentleman that I was mentioning before, who wrote this book, Start Ugly, where you use a calendar to guard time. And so even if it's a whole swath of a month, knowing that, like, okay, in August, I know that I really want to put a lot of concerted energy into this thing, having this goal and this end a month. And so for that month, you practice saying no. And if somebody says, oh, Joe, ask me out to coffee, just practice.
Would you like to go to coffee, Rizzo?
Oh my God, I would so love to go to coffee. This month, I'm totally booked, but could we make a date for September 1st? Now, I am not good at that. And so that's why I really just wanted to practice with you, because I will just say, yes, can we do it this week? Because I'd rather do it than actually work on my fucking book. But it's not a lie to say you're booked, because it's this ultimate dedication to the larger rocks. Because in the end, the larger rocks, making a dedication to that, is the goals that will help you actually feel that foundational safety of, I am doing the work that is connected to the mission of my life. And this can be another whole subject of, like, what is the reason you're doing this work? Is it for ego gratification? Usually that is not sustaining. The more sustaining work is if you connecting how this mission of doing this creative work is going to help connect with communication in the greater world, of telling this story, who it is going to affect, who it's going to resonate with. And usually if you're noticing that you're very tired often, and you're feeling like an extra level of exhaustion around, especially creative things, I would suggest you spend a little bit of time on your true vision, and the vision that I believe that you were perhaps born with, this mission, this greater wide mission of what you're doing in the world and what sort of impact you're making on the world. And then how you judge your goals as if it's feeding back into that. Okay, here, let's go back into another thing with your pens. So I want you to make a list. This is back into our time thing, creating the boulders. I want you to make a list of the top 6 things you must do this year. Easy. And if this is not the final list, if you want to spend more time on this list, let's just take a couple minutes to write this list. This is the list, what it is right now. And don't get stressed out about sharing this part. 6 things you want to do this year. You must. Whew, it's February. So by next February, you must do this year. Oh my gosh. And one can be vacation. Okay.
Good.
Now, from that list and from the kind of the things that take work on that list, I'd like for you to make a star by, let's make a star by 3 of them. That meaning that we're looking for the things that are more pressing now first. Okay, 3. Now, let's, from those 3, pick 2 of them and make a dash by the star, by the 2 ones that you're, or yeah, maybe it's the one that gives you most joy, who knows? Okay. Ooh. Okay. All right, so now from those 2 ones, the one that have the star and the dash, what I'd like for you to do is make another 6 item list. And 1 through 3 are, or the next, or 3 things you can do towards those items. And 4 through 6 of the first one, and 4 through 6. So basically 3 for each one, 3 action items for each one. Okay, so this is a practice of making a list where you're starting with the 6 things you have to do this year, then the 6 thing you can also look at as 6, then from that 6 things you have to do this month, and then 6 things you have to do today. I think why I wanted to do it with you is mainly I wanted to do it for myself, to know what I'm doing after this session is over. But I think, as you can see, it's that idea of like the big resistance that Tanya was talking about is the time that it takes to finish, and I can't finish it in a day, so I won't start at all. We're taking bite-sized pieces, tiny 1% things, and that I hope that in your list of the 1, 2, 3 and the 1, 2, 3, do some seem not scary and actionable and possible? Yeah, possible. Cool. And maybe you could do some of them today. Maybe you could do half of them today.
Let's have coffee.
Mom has to have coffee on. All right. This is almost the end. Okay, I just so just some broad strokes that reminding you that creativity is not a talent. It's a work ethic, and we just have to start often and start ugly and see where it takes you. Be protective of your habits and rituals. So I have a ritual of waking up. I start with yoga and meditation, and then I sit down at my desk, and often I get very distracted into my to-dos that include emails and social media. And they're part of what I have to do, and it's just really easy to get distracted by them. So I am trying a new practice of turning off all notifications. As Joyce Carol Oates says, like the biggest enemy to a writer or any artist is interruption. And we are in a world with constant notifications and distractions. So yeah, batch your social media and your email into a 30-minute time where you've got to get this shit done in that amount of time, and then you can't get creative, meaningful work done in small batches. So you need to have long swaths. You don't find time, you make it. So that means delegating some of the other things that you have on your list to do, being really honest with yourself about, like, can I afford spending $100 a month for the deep clean of the floors, and instead of doing it myself, and get that 3 hours back or whatever. Yeah, and starting with the hard things. Being honest also about fatigue. When you get really tired, you start making a lot of typos, or you're starting making mistakes, to give yourselves breaks. Give yourselves breaks where you start walking around, you do the opposite action of what you've been doing. I think that we all have that fear that we're too old to do new things. And I found a couple of lists where, like, these people did these things in their early 30s. See, it wasn't too old. And it's like, fuck you, like, I want to, like, there's many lists of artists. Like, think about Grandma Moses. We think about, we need to see more artists that started new things in their 70s. And that exists. We can always recreate. You can always reinvent yourself. And if you don't want to actually reinvent yourself, take a page out of my book and just make an alter ego. So yeah, my big things of why I don't start, if I haven't gotten it all figured out yet, which, as I addressed, we don't need to have it all figured out to start. You just need to do baby blocks, and often that's an outline or a sketch or just an exercise where I'm making bad work and trusting that it will be better. I say it's too overwhelming because I don't know where to start. I say I can't find or prioritize the time. I say I'm scared of failing. But so lastly, just in this last 5 minutes of our time, I wanted to kind of ask you guys what you think failure is, like, because I feel like this is the big kind of holy grail of what keeps us in any sort of rut or inertia. And so, like, what exactly is failure to you? Because I mean, if we can't do it here, like, I mean, let's just get it out there. What is failure, Mom?
Failure is when I started a story, and I was working on it and working on it and working on it, And my sister, I sent it to my sister because it was about our family. And she sent it back with all these editing notes and made a comment about, some people can't write. And that was it. I never touched it
Mhm.
again.
Right,
Never touched it again.
right.
So
So
that was
failure
to me.
for you.
Yes.
And is that actually failure? The failure, the only thing about that is failure is that you actually, it stopped you.
That it stopped me.
Yeah.
That was what was failure.
Right.
That I just felt like, well, okay, I'm not a writer.
Right, right. Not
Yeah.
keeping in the thought of like, wow, this is a complicated relationship with a sister who
Right?
also might consider herself a writer, and there's a lot of
Yeah, there was a lot of whatever, but it just stopped me.
yeah.
And
I hope that you'll return to that
I
story.
hope so too.
And
Maybe
maybe
I'll
just-
write it down on my list of things to do this
Yeah,
year.
and maybe just don't share it with Lisa until you've got a couple of drafts in. Okay. Joe, what is failure to you?
Okay. So at first I was like, kind of your reaction was like, is that really failure? Or like, what is failure? Maybe I'm so positive I don't see failure in anything. But I think that's actually negative because one of my main to-dos was like creating structure. And I feel like I don't have actually enough like guardrails in my life, really. That's why I scroll myself to sleep every night, for example. Like I need so I think my version of failure would be like not, as that Congresswoman Maxine Waters said, like not reclaiming my time, kind of. I am kind of pulled in these other directions, and I need to like reclaim my time, as life is short. You said time is valuable. I'm reclaiming my time.
Like protecting it in a way
Yes.
that you would like a child or a kitten.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, getting feisty about, I also have that people pleasing thing, and so I can understand like not valuing your time enough. Yeah, that's helpful for me. Tanya, do you have any thoughts about how failure stopped you or the concept of failure?
Gosh, you know what? It's funny the way you just restated that. I would change what I was going to say. Originally, what I was going to say is where I feel I fail myself is that I don't show up for myself. I'm available to other people, and I'm like Jane on the spot for anybody I love. But when it comes for me to show up for myself, I often fail myself, and that comes down to things like, I don't go to the gym unless I'm paying a trainer, and I show up at the gym because I don't want to disappoint the trainer, not because I don't want to disappoint myself. And so, and oftentimes it's things like that, things that should be good, that I should be doing that are good for myself, I end up tossing aside for various other reasons. And therefore that's where I feel I fail.
And the concept of like, perhaps not, so I know that you work really hard on other people's projects, but maybe not, and feel as an editor and feel like very tied for time, but in starting any projects that would, even if they don't mean economic things, but like, where is this sense of, is there any sense of that the reason you don't do that is because of fear of failure? Or
fear of failing on my own projects?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, if
you know what, a lot of times it comes down to when I'm working for work, I really know how to do that. So it's we may have talked about this before. It's like, it's easy for me to get up in the morning and go recut a scene. But it's hard for me to rewrite that pilot I wrote in 2015.
right.
Because I don't, it's uncharted waters. Like I have to figure out a way to retell this story post pandemic, and I just get lost, and it's like, oh, I know how I can be creative and productive and finish something in a day. I can go do what I know how to do really well.
Oh, right. And that feeds into like this is how I feel good about myself, is by doing the things over and over again that I know how to do well. And I know that like at an early age, I got some sort of patting on the back of like, you do this well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, I have that bit too. Jeff?
Oh gosh, I was thinking, when I talk to students, I always say, failure is just a sign pointing that away. That for me, it's all part of the game of storytelling, which is, my gig is, you have to, it was really hard, I think, at the beginning of my career to have something, to spend weeks on something, put it in front of the audience and just have it tank. But to me, that is the only failure, is when, I have not reached my audience. But there's a real fun sort of gallows humor, I think, in telling a story and working with your collaborators and selling them on this idea you've had for weeks, fluffing it up and putting it out there before the crowd and just watching it fail. I mean, some of the hardest laughs I've ever had. And this is, of course, when you're in previews or when you're in workshops or when you have a chance to try things. So I don't know, my relationship to failure, the only failure I really can feel is if at the end of the day, the audience is not engaged.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
then that means that my head was up my ass somewhere. So I just have to, it's on me. And that's the kind of failure I think I've learned to live with. And often I think it can be your friend,
Yeah. The teaching failure, like creative failure that is more of a faithful teacher than success ever would be.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
there's fun in it. There's fun in the game of it.
Yeah, back to like it feeling fun and not paralyzing. Like,
oh, I mean, because it's like, for me, if I don't ever really take notes when I'm watching like a preview or anything, because I remember every single moment that the audience was nonplussed. And it's just them giving you a guide, because I'm a commercial, as a commercial artist as you are, your job is to tickle the audience, and so the audience is I think the real teacher. Yeah.
yeah. Wonderful. Perfect words to end. If we end our little session with, because I think that as human beings, like I've said before, our birthright is creativity. And that is because communication and sharing our life, and everyone's life is worthy of sharing, is the great joy of living. And so taking those words of like the audience, like it doesn't matter if your audience is 2 people. Like, I think that like not getting, and even if you've only shared that story with Lisa and your sister and me, like, I didn't say you should stop writing when I read it. You listened to her. I said, this is great. I think you should expand on this, and so like taking this idea of like, not everybody is our audience, but there are some people that are going to connect to our work and need it. And the actual action of it is what is going to increase our mental health, our lack of anxiety, our joy in playing with the world, and the vibrancy we carry around with us that draws people to us. Thank you guys so much for joining me for a hot and fresh one hour in the middle of the day. I love you. And I'm so glad that Jeff joined us for the first time. And is this the first time you've made it too? Yeah, Joe?
I made it once before, actually. Once or twice before. I remember you asked us like about books for reading and stuff like that. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll do another one in spring. And I do want to let you know that like on Patreon, I'm totally available for you, like ever writing in about like, here are the things that I'm working, you know, like checking in. Accountability is helpful sometimes. So from those lists that you made for your 6 things that you want to do this year, if you ever want to reach out to me and say like, hey, I'm really working on this, you know, book called this, and if you could check in on how I'm doing, I'm here for you. And yeah, Jeff, I encourage you to join our little Patreon group. You can do it at any level, but the $10 a month level, which is less than, you know, 2 cups of oolong souchong tea a month, gives you this the creative centering circle, and you get to see what I wear in my house. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, Rizzo.
Thanks,
Bye,
Rizzo.
Rizzo.
Love.
Thanks,
Bye.
Rizzo.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.